Hi, it's Pastor Kate here, back with another mini Bible study for 1st and 2nd Samuel. So on Sunday, we read 1st Samuel chapter 3, which is the calling of Samuel as a child. And it's a really nice story about listening to God and teaching children to recognize God's voice. But the content of God's message to and through Samuel it gets kind of juicy. So God says to Samuel, "On that day I will fulfill against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house from the beginning to the end. For I have told him that I am about to punish his house forever for the iniquity that he knew, because his sons were blaspheming God and he did not restrain them." And this isn't the first time that God's sent a message to Eli about Eli's sons and what they've been doing. So in chapter 2 of 1st Samuel, um, a someone comes to Eli and tells Eli that his sons have been taking the people's offerings to God for themselves. That's verse 29. Therefore, no one in your family shall ever live to old age, and the fate of your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, that's the two that are blaspheming God, shall be assigned to you. Both of them shall die on the same day. And then the oracle finishes, "I'm going to replace your family with someone more faithful, and anyone left in your family is going to be reduced to beggars." So now we get to see how this plays out. So a reading from 1st Samuel chapter 4, verses 1 to 18. In those days, the Philistines mustered for war against Israel, and Israel went out to battle against them. They encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek. The Philistines drew up in a line against Israel, and when the battle was joined, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the field of battle. When the troops came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord put us to rout today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, so that he may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, who is enthroned on the cherubim. The two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel gave a mighty shout so that the earth resounded. When the Philistines heard the noise of the shouting, they said, "What does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" When they learned that the ark of the Lord had come to the camp, the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "Gods have come into the camp." They also said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us! Who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, in order not to become slaves to the Hebrews as they have been to you. Be men and fight." So the Philistines fought. Israel was defeated, and they fled everyone to his home. There was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 foot soldiers. The ark of God was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. And then a messenger runs to Shiloh, where Eli is. And Eli asks the man what happened. And the messenger says to Eli, "I have just come from the battle. I fled from the battle today." Eli said, "How did it go, my son?" The messenger replied, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has also been a great slaughter among the troops. Your two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured." When he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell over backward from his seat by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died, for he was an old man and heavy. He had judged Israel 40 years. So that's what happens to Eli and to his family. So in the next couple chapters, which you can read, Samuel chapter 5 and chapter 6, they're about what happens to the Philistines when they take the ark home with them, and how the ark of the covenant eventually makes its way back to the Israelites. Those stories are inspiration for what happens to the Nazis and Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark. But today I want to talk about the Philistines because they are Israel's enemies throughout 1st and 2nd Samuel and the earlier book of Judges. So I'm going to bring up my map. And so we have, so Samuel starts at the end of the period of the Judges in the mid 11th century BC. And at that time, the big empires, that's Egypt, Babylon, and Assyria in the region in the Near East, were busy with their own internal struggles, part of the late Bronze Age collapse, I guess. And that meant that the smaller groups in the region, in Cana, were kind of left to themselves, and so they were vying for power in the region among themselves over here. So zooming in, here we've got the southern half of Canaan, and Israel is in the middle here. And they're surrounded by the Philistines to the west, and there's the Ammonites on the east, and Moab and Edom. And so in Judges, the Israelites are fighting with their neighbors, and when the people are conquered by their enemies or their neighbors, God raises a temporary leader called a judge to respond. So you've got Ehud, who repels the Moabites from over here in chapter 3. Also in chapter 3, Shamgar defeats the Philistines in just one verse. In the north, Deborah and Barak and Jael defeat the Midianites in chapters 6 to 8. And then Jephthah defeats the Ammonites in chapters 10 to 12, up here to the northeast. And the story is about Samson. Samson's more of a individual hero than a judge that brings the people together. And Samson is all about killing Philistines too. So the Philistines are a particular threat to Israel. Here we go. So they're called the Sea Peoples, and they're thought to have come from islands in the Aegean Sea, like Crete. And they had tried to settle in the Nile Delta, but they were repelled by Egypt. So instead, they settled along the southern coast of Canaan, which was pretty rich land and also gave them access to the big trade routes. But the big thing for them that gave them an advantage over the Israelites was their technology. They and many of Israel's other enemies had chariots, unlike ancient Israel, and they also had iron smelting technology that they could use to make iron tools and weapons. And meanwhile, Israel is still living in the Bronze Age. So they've got a huge military advantage this way. So the Philistines had 5 rulers and 5 cities. So Ashdod, Ashkelon, Ekron over here, Gath, and Gaza down here. And in the reading from Samuel chapter 4, somewhere around here, the Israelites faced the Philistines in battle and got totally destroyed. And over here is Shiloh, where Samuel and Eli are, and the ark was. And so the Israelites brought the ark from Shiloh to the battle, And then the Philistines brought it back to their cities, I think starting with Ashdod and then sending it to Ekron, and it actually makes its way through all their cities, wreaking havoc. So pressure from the Philistines. Let's stop the share. So pressure from the Philistines is one of the reasons that the Israelites ask Samuel for a king. That's our reading on Sunday. And during King Saul's 20-year reign, there's a whole series of wars with the Philistines, and Saul himself is eventually killed by the Philistines in battle. And then this next king, David, during Saul's reign, David, as a boy, defeats the Philistine champion Goliath. So that's the famous story of David and Goliath. And later on, David spends a while as a mercenary fighting with the Philistines. But once David is king of Israel, of all the tribes of Israel, he has a decisive victory over them, and they're no longer a military threat to Israel, to the kingdom of Israel. And then later on, the Greek historian Herodotus names this whole region Palestine, which is the whole region of Canaan, Palestine, after the Greek form of their name, Palestina. So that's where we get the term Palestine and Palestinians today. So that's it. I'll see you on Sunday and back here next week.